Welcome to Echoes of Time, a journey into the forgotten worlds and the secrets they left behind.
So how did the US become the richest, most powerful country in history? You'd think it was a sure thing, right? Almost inevitable. But the real story is, well, it's way more improbable than you might think. So let's dive into the incredible, unexpected rise of America.
In fact, for over 100 years after Europeans first arrived, most of North America was just ignored. I mean, people literally saw it as this big, boring obstacle that was just getting in the way of the real prize, Asia.
All right, so let's kick things off at the very beginning, looking at how this land that was dismissed as useless somehow eventually became the center of the world's attention.
Okay, so what's wild about this chart is what it tells you about everyone's priorities back then. You had Columbus looking for a shortcut to Asia, but he stumbles upon some gold in the Caribbean. The Portuguese? They're busy building a huge trading empire over in the east. And the Spanish, well, they hit the absolute jackpot with all the gold and silver in Central and South America. And North America? It just didn't have the bling they were after.
And that right there is the key. Think about that. For 100 years, the major powers in Europe basically wrote off North America as useless lands. While Spain and Portugal were getting rich building these huge empires to the south, the northern continent was just this massive, cold afterthought.
But of course, that wasn't gonna last. Pretty soon, a couple of new players show up on the scene, the English and the French. And as they start setting up their own colonies, they're putting themselves on a collision course that's gonna decide the fate of the entire continent.
Okay, fast forward to 1754, and things are really heating up. The French colonies were pretty spread out, mostly just forts and trading posts. But the British colonies, they were booming. We're talking towns, farms, the whole shebang. The population difference was just staggering, over 1 million people in the British colonies versus only about 60,000 in New France. I mean, that is a huge difference, and it gave the British a massive, massive advantage when war finally broke out.
And this is where you see the dominoes start to fall, one right after the other. Britain wins the war, gets a ton of new land, including all of Canada. Awesome, right? Well, winning a war is expensive, like really expensive. So to pay off this massive debt, Britain starts taxing the American colonies. And the colonists fire back with a slogan you've definitely heard before, and one that would change everything: no taxation without representation. So that protest? Yeah, it kind of snowballs into a full-blown revolution. In 1776, the colonies declare independence. But you know, winning the war is one thing, building a country is another. The first shot at a government was, well, a total disaster. You had 13 states all acting like their own little countries. It was failing so badly, in fact, that the Founding Fathers basically had to have a do-over, creating the Constitution in 1789 to set up a government that could, actually govern. So now we've got a government that actually works, the country's on its feet, and what happens next is this incredible period of growth, but it wasn't driven by war. It was driven by some of the craziest, most opportunistic deals you've ever heard of.
So here's the situation. The US desperately needs the port of New Orleans to move goods down the Mississippi River. The problem? A guy you might have heard of, Napoleon Bonaparte, and his French Empire had just taken over the whole area. So what's a young country to do? And more importantly, what did Napoleon do?
But Napoleon, in a move that I don't think anyone saw coming, decides to just cut his losses. See, he needed money, and fast, for his wars in Europe. So he basically said, enough. I've made up my mind, we will sell it all. Not just New Orleans, the whole kit and caboodle.
And the price tag for all of this? A mere $15 million, which, even back then, was an absolute steal. With the stroke of a pen, the United States literally doubled in size. Just like that. It has to be one of the greatest real estate deals in all of history.
That one deal kicked off this 50-year frenzy of expansion. The goal was now from sea to shining sea. And that destiny was going to be fulfilled through more deals, tons of new settlements, and, yeah, one pretty controversial war.
And you just have to look at how quickly this all went down. It starts with Louisiana in '03. Then, just 16 years later, Florida gets purchased from Spain. In 1845, the Republic of Texas joins the party. That, of course, leads right into the Mexican-American War, which ends with the US getting the entire Southwest. A few years later, the Gadsden Purchase basically finishes the puzzle.
So, how much did all this cost? You'd be surprised. I mean, look at this. The Louisiana Purchase and the massive territory from the Mexican Cession each cost the same, $15 million. It was an era of grabbing unbelievable amounts of land for what was, relatively speaking, pocket change.
So there you have it. In roughly 50 years, the job's done. The U.S. stretches from one ocean to the other. The continental nation is complete. Nowhere left to go, right?
Well, you'd think so. But American ambition found this, let's just say, very unique way to keep going. The Guano Islands Act. This has to be one of the weirdest laws ever. It let any American citizen just claim any random, unclaimed island they found anywhere in the world as long as it had guano on it, which is, just a fancy way of saying bird poop. Seriously, it was super valuable as fertilizer back then.
Okay, so after the incredibly brutal Civil War, the country's focus really split in a few different directions. A lot of energy went into rebuilding the South and firing up industrial growth. People were still heading west to settle new lands, but also, the country started looking outward, beyond its own borders, and that includes the kinda out-of-the-blue purchase of Alaska from Russia.
And all of this sets the stage for the final act in our story. America making the leap from a nation that mostly kept to itself to a full-on global empire.
And nothing captures this shift better than the debate over Hawaii. It was a real flashpoint. On one side, you had people saying, hey, a just nation shouldn't be pushing weaker ones around. But on the other side, a much more, let's call it a real-world view emerged, basically saying, look, if we don't take Hawaii, someone else will, like Germany or Japan, and we can't let that happen.
Well, that whole debate basically got settled for them by the Spanish-American War in '98. It was called a splendid little war, and it completely dismantled what was left of the Spanish Empire. The U.S. went in supporting Cuban independence, but came out with control of Cuba, Puerto Rico, and even the Philippines. And right in the middle of all that, Hawaii was officially annexed. In just a few months, America went from being a republic to an empire.
And the guy who really sealed the deal on this new status was Teddy Roosevelt. He built up a massive new navy, the Great White Fleet, and championed the Panama Canal, which let that navy move between the Atlantic and Pacific with ease. So by the time World War I rolls around, America isn't just a big country anymore. It's a genuine world power.
And this all circles back to that one fundamental question that came up during the Hawaii debate. A question that, really, has shaped America's role in the world ever since. Should America mind its own business, or should it mind its own interests? How we answer that, well, that continues to shape our world, even today.
This was Echoes of Time. If you love powerful history stories, subscribe and continue the journey with us.